Star students, welcome back to the Astro Study Room. I'm Ember Faye, your friendly neighborhood fire fairy witch.
And I'm Jordan. Our goal for this podcast, as always, is to make sure that everyone knows that we're all just students and we're all learning this together and that everything can be accessible. And basically, we're all just students meeting up after class to go over our notes together. Every other Tuesday, we will be exploring core astrology topics, breaking them down, and just chatting about how these concepts show up in our real lives and reflect on what wisdom the stars have to share with us. If you enjoy this episode, I hope you will consider subscribing and leaving us a review to help us grow this little cohort of astrology students.
So welcome to episode 3. As we mentioned in our last episode, Jordan and I had the intention of doing an episode on the sun, the moon, and the rising sign. And as we were going through it, we were about a little over an hour into recording. We were like, oh, maybe we have too much to say about these topics.
Sun, yeah.
So there was no way we were fitting it all into one episode. So today, we'll be covering the epic, amazing, magical moon. So if you're interested in learning about what your sun sign is and haven't checked out our last episode, pause right now and go listen to the sun. And as always, don't forget to check out all of our free episode-related content on our Patreon, including study guides, journal prompts, and more.
Yeah, Ember and I have been slowly releasing this content on Patreon, and we would love your feedback in the comments or on our social media. So don't forget to let us know what you are thinking or what you would like to see more of. And new to our Patreon, we have introduced donation tiers. If you've been loving our little study sessions and you want to help us keep the cosmic classroom open, we would be over the moon with your support. We've created some fun and affordable donation tiers to help you stay connected and support the magic behind the mics.
Heck yes, Jordan and I are just so committed to this podcast and funding it completely out of pocket to make sure that you get all the resources you need to study the cosmos with us, and absolutely no pressure to donate at all. We just want people to be able to access this Patreon and get the content for free. We just want it to be super accessible to our listeners.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, Ember and I are focused on trying to make astrological information accessible. We know that astrology can be very expensive art to learn. And of course, it can also be difficult to learn, especially on your own. And we know that the price of learning astrology can be a barrier. And we appreciate that. So we want to make sure that this space is still accessible to everyone.
Yeah, so please let us know how we're doing. Comments, likes, subscribes, give us feedback on how we can help you learn. And as a reminder, Jordan and I are both students ourselves, so we definitely don't know everything, and we'll be totally upfront about that with you. So we're learning together in this little Astro study room, which is why it is so special and near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah, so buckle up, Star students. Class is officially out, and the study room is in session. So moving on to our current astro weather section. This week, we're going to talk about not too much, actually. The biggest thing going on is that Uranus has just moved into Gemini. I believe that would be a couple days before this podcast goes live. And I've spent a lot of time learning about the planets that have moved into Aries, so I need to now spend more time learning about Uranus going to Gemini. But what I can imagine is this would have a lot to do with technical advancement, and especially with the trine to Pluto in Aquarius. Screams AI to me. And I think this transit has been used a bit online, not necessarily on purpose, but I feel like it's been used as fear-mongering. But I will share that the U.S. is coming up on its Uranus return, and wars have always coincided with this transit. So the first, the birth of the U.S. was the Revolutionary War. Uranus, I think, was at 8 degrees in Gemini. Then the next time it came around was the Civil War, and the next time it came around was World War II, and we are just coming up on the next time around.
Yeah, that's... when you're talking about the fear-mongering on Instagram or social media. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily call it fear-mongering versus at least what I've seen is warnings. I was talking about
it can just be overwhelming, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does. And that coincidence of coinciding with these different intense experiences or collective traumas is really interesting going into what our political status is right now. Yeah, I have to say it's definitely on my mind for sure. We talked about it actually a little while ago. So in Tanae's group, in our inner circle through the Starlight Coven, at the beginning of the year, we kind of did like an astro weather forecast, and we went into this a lot about just how these coincidences, I don't know if we call them coincidences, astro weather was affecting the collective. And just, I think like even without there's a lot of war going on right now. But if we're looking locally, just the June 14th protests, like we are in a volatile time. And I think that's being reflected astrologically as well.
I wasn't going to talk about this, but
Sorry, I
yesterday.
just had to go
No, no,
into
no, no,
it.
no. Yesterday, I got this happens. I think there's probably a few Jehovah's Witnesses who live near me, because I get kind of approached regularly by people trying to convert, and I sat down on the bench next to her, and she was like, "Would you like something to read?" And I was like, "Oh, I have a book, thanks." And she was like, "This is a magazine about pain and suffering," and I was like, "Why would I want to read that?" But she then kind of like tried to have a conversation about like the end is near, like everything was prophesized, the world is going to end soon. You have to read this magazine.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I think that happens. I don't know. I feel like when we hit the new millennia, that was like going on. There was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that happens a lot. And I don't necessarily believe the world is ending, but I do think we are coming upon a really big shift in so many different aspects of our life right now, and a collective like waking up that will be interesting as we go through the astrology to see how that may match
Yeah.
up with what's going on in the world.
That sounds a bit like Neptune and Aries too, and even like conjunct Saturn. And like once it moves away from the conjunction with Saturn, once Saturn moves on, because Saturn is kind of like it's making things like more hard and more rigid. But I think Neptune and Aries is gonna kind of like start. We talked about this before too, but some kind of like new religion, some kind of new age, something new with religion.
I think we need new. It'll be interesting to see. We're going through a lot of pain and suffering right now on so many different ways. And all I can hope for in my like little optimistic brain is that this is all for a reason and we're going to come out stronger and more powerful on the other side.
Love that. So back to Uranus. So Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, which makes Mercury the dispositor of Uranus right now. Mercury has a lot to do with trade and commerce, so we could also see some radical shifts in business and trade. And I don't know if this would necessarily refer to like the tariffs or if this could be something else coming up or whatever.
Making everything not
yeah.
affordable.
Yeah. Uranus is all about like huge, sudden, surprising changes. And then Uranus is also about like progressivism and like moving things forward. And maybe like in my mind, this is my own bias. In my mind, I associate like progressivism as like, oh, this is good. Like this, like we want to progress and like being progressive is good. But I guess because Uranus is seen as like a neutral planet, so I guess progressivism can just mean progressing one way or the other. And then watch out for feelings of restlessness and be very careful of overstimulation. And I think this has to go with like all the time, honestly. But I think with Uranus moving into Gemini, it can just be like extra stimulating because Uranus has a lot to do with the nervous system, and so does Mercury. So this is a very good time to be aware of your screen time. I was told by another astrologer as well that this is a good time to cool it with stimulants like caffeine and sugar, especially if this transit is activating anything in your chart.
Ooh, that's interesting. I think we could all use a little bit of like a mental stimulation break. So
Yes.
I think this is pretty.
But thanks for watching this podcast.
Or just listening, lay in bed, close your eyes, listen. I think like maybe avoid staring at our beautiful.
I was thinking of deleting TikTok off my phone for a little bit, just a little bit.
I do not. I have TikTok, but I do not use it. But I scroll Instagram, so it's like almost.
I'm not a big Instagram person, but I do.
Yeah.
I scroll TikTok, yeah.
Yeah, my burlesque community is mostly focused on Instagram, which is why I mostly engage with that content. But it's the same vibe. Like it's nice to be able to curate that content, to be able to like really filter what I want to see so it's not like breaking my head. But yeah, I think we could all use a little bit of a mental break from.
Yeah, there's got to be a good balance. We've talked about this before, but I feel like the past like year or so, I've really romanticized what life must have been like before phones and before AI. And there are so many things I love about social media. I really, really do. But sometimes I wish it could all just go away. We could all just look at each other again. But I know I'm romanticizing it because there is so much good that has come from social media. But there's got to be a better balance than like what we're doing.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree. And so I'm
Yeah.
curious, Jordan, do you have any, like, what should we be focusing on as, Uranus is showing up in this transit? Like, do you have any advice or things that we really need to pay attention to?
Yeah, definitely the screen time, stimulants, and then look in your own chart and see where Gemini is, and especially see if you have any planets being activated. So if you have any planets in the air signs, this would be Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, that would make a trine with Uranus, which is generally a good thing. Or do you have any planets in the mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces? The square would kind of make it a bit difficult and frictiony. Uranus has a very long transit; it's 8 years. So even if you have a planet in Gemini, it could still be it could be up to 8 years away from your planet. It could be anywhere between 1 month to 8 years. So see if it's actually touching any of your planets, and then depending on who you talk to, what kind of astrologer you talk to, they'll use different orbs. And
What's an orb?
an orb is like how far away a planet is from the planet we're talking about, to be considered
Oh.
in aspect with that planet. So if you have a planet that's 10 to 12 degrees away from one planet, some astrologers will consider that a conjunction. Some only consider it a conjunction if it's within a 3 degree orb. So it's like 3 degrees on either side. It's that orb around
Okay.
that planet.
Okay. So the orb can be adjustable based on like what, as an astrologer, you practice. Like the orb
Yeah.
could be like 6 degrees, 3 degrees. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
so
it.
it depends on the aspect. Like conjunctions tend to have a wider orb. To me, so far in how I use it, like Uranus, which is a slow moving planet, has a smaller orb. I would probably, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I would use like a 3 degree orb at most for Uranus.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to look different depending on who you ask.
Okay, got it. And just to reiterate, Jordan, like the last time Uranus was in Gemini was World War II, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
length of time. That is so wild to me. Okay. So moving on from Uranus, and speaking of cycles and transits, we have a full moon in Capricorn, or the buck moon, coming up on July 10th at 4:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, whereas our last full moon, in Sagittarius is this like carefree, optimistic, expansive vibes, a full moon in Capricorn can really help you illuminate some more of like your responsibilities and where and how you're showing up for commitment. So, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which we talked a lot about in previous episodes, being that boundary setting, long term goals planet that, maybe focusing on like discipline you need to achieve your goals. So, this full moon may be a really good time to reflect on what some of your goals are and if you're setting yourself up for manifesting those goals based on like maybe some of the boundaries you've put in place, your commitment. You can just think on this. You can journal on what those goals are, and it's a good time to just be really honest and clear with yourself in what you want and how you gonna get there, baby.
Yeah, that's great. I just love hearing you talk about the moon. And then, like, I also want to mention, think about the new moon in Capricorn that was at the end of December, and like, what have you manifested since then? What are you releasing since December? So much, obviously, has happened since December.
So
What do you
much.
need to release? Yeah, like, what happened in December that you would like to let go of? Yeah, so that is it for our astro weather section. So let's get into today's topic, the moon.
The moon. All right, everyone. So we're going to get into our main topic today, the moon. I apologize ahead of time. I don't know if I just got like some allergies going on or something right now, but like I sound a little stuffy. So apologizing ahead of time. Hopefully you won't be hearing me like cough or anything like that. So last episode, we talked about the sun extensively. And so it's only right that we honor the moon just as well. And as I've said a million times, I have serious love for the moon. Before I really started studying astrology, when I thought like the sun sign was like all that mattered to me, and sun sign in Cancer, I really thought like the moon rules me, the moon rules my charts and everything. And I really got like in tune with the moon, and I just love that. So even though, spoiler alert, that's not true. I'm a Libra rising, so Venus rules my chart, which I also have dove into and really love. I still love the moon and how it cycles and how intuitive it is, how magical the moon is, and how it can really help us connect with like our feminine energy.
Have you heard of the term dispositor?
No, I've heard you say it before though.
Yeah, this will have to be on one of our like little astro key term things, but the moon is the dispositor of your sun. So that's kind of like another cool
What does that
little
mean? What is a
Yeah, so
dispositor?
a dispositor is like the planet that is hosting a planet. So because you have your sun in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon is the dispositor of your sun. Or just
Oh,
like how Uranus has moved into Gemini, right now, Mercury is a dispositor of Uranus.
is it just another way to say like this planet rules this sign?
It's a way of saying this planet rules the sign that this planet is in. So, you know that the conversation that we had about dignities and domiciles, detriment, exaltations, and falls. So we used like a theater metaphor, but a lot of people will use like an actual like hosting metaphor.
Oh,
So like I have my moon in Taurus, so Venus is the host of my moon. And Venus loves the moon, so they get along really well and they love having sleepovers together. But
oh.
Saturn in Aries, Mars would be the dispositor, and Mars and Saturn don't get along in that way. Saturn does not like to be. It's like it's like the this is how I picture it. Saturn in Aries is like the grandfather who has to stay at his 18-year-old son's house, and his son doesn't take care of the house. He just like runs it rampant, and this old man is like, I can't wait to get out of here.
Oh my God, I love that.
But yeah, that's a good connection with the moon because the moon literally rules your sun as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that makes so much sense. And I love that so much.
Yeah.
And okay.
And so the moon is like such an important part of our chart. It's our inner private world. And when we are exploring who we are as individuals, it can be really interesting when reading about your moon because it's a lot to do with like who we are when we are alone and like who we are internally, whereas the sun is like the parts of ourselves that we have to express externally, like we said. But the moon is like, I choose who I want to show this to. It's a lot more intimate.
Yeah, I really like to think about the moon as my inner child or kind of going with that vibe. Like I relate a lot with my inner child. I do a lot of inner child work. So it's going to be your emotions, your feelings, and really what you need to feel safe and loved. And I think that is such an important part of the whole being of who you are. And so the moon as your subconscious or your intuition, like I really think it helps you to understand how you can process your intuition and how your intuition potentially you could look to see where the moon is in your chart to see how you may process into your own intuition. Going back to that idea of what we talked about in the sun sign of like what I would put like these key terms about the moon that I would put on my flashcards or something like that, the key themes is really going to be intuition, safety, home and family, femininity, subconscious, rhythm, and cycle. So I just love how flowy the moon is.
Yeah, I think the big ones for me are definitely safety, emotions, and intuition. I definitely like the rhythms and cycles too. I need to reflect more on that with the moon.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, the moon just so much like the cycles of the ocean. The ocean's such a huge part of our earth, right? And the moon basically controls the tides. And when you think about yourself and how the moon, I mean, we're basically made of water too. And I like nerd out about it. I'm just like, the moon is so powerful and amazing. And it's so close to us. It's like so close to us when you think of like the relative expanse of the universe.
Yeah, so true. And to bring it back to like medical astrology again, which I'm not a medical astrologer, but I know a little thing or thing. But the moon is like the signifier of the body, so it can tell us a lot about like the general state of our body in the birth chart. And the moon rules over ovarian functions and breasts and the womb. And the moon rules over the hippocampus, which is why the moon is like associated with memory. And the moon is also seen to rule over like mucous membranes in our body because the moon is like the protector, much like the womb. The moon is a protector or the one that houses us, if that makes sense. So like the membranes that like, I don't know, I'm getting lost in my own knowledge of
Yeah.
anatomy, but like the things that like protect our organs, you know.
Yeah, the mucous
Your turn.
membranes. The mucous membranes, that was actually not one I would think of. Like I always knew the moon was associated with like the womb and ovarian.
I think because it's also like, you know, it's fluid, just like how you were mentioning, like the moon rules over water and we have so much water in our bodies. Like, I think it's just another fluid that's in our body. And it also happens to be like a protective layer of fluid.
Yeah, the mucous membrane's totally protective, and as well as it does kind of like when you think of the flow, right? Like your mucous membranes are certain colors because of like the blood flowing through those capillaries. So like when you look at your gums or you look at like any sort your inner cheeks, whatever, the mucous membranes are going to be usually like a pink color, but like you get some more increased flow there for whatever reason. You've been running or you're sick, like you're going to see them as a red color. And then, if you're for some reason you're not processing oxygen appropriately, right? Like then you're gonna have like blue mucous membranes. Like there's such a mirror into how your body is doing when it comes to your cardiovascular function. And so when you put it like that, and I thought more about it, I was like, oh, the mucous membranes kind of make sense. There's like a flow there that's going on. Like it's like these little capillary beds that kind of speak to each other, and the blood is moving back and forth there, and that's like creating this potent color. I don't know. I just like had never really thought about that. But definitely the womb and the ovarian function. I mean, we're talking about the moon and cycles, and I've been so interested in that relationship between the moon and my own feminine cycle that I actually have a journal that I'm excited about posting on our Patreon to share.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called the Cycles Journal. And essentially I track my menstrual cycle with the astrological cycles and the moon. So I'll do a post on that and share it with you guys, and I'll review it and talk about it a little bit later too when we get more into like how I use the moon in my magical practices. But I do think there's an association there between like our own cycles, and seeing where it falls, and tracking that and seeing if like you have very similar responses during, different phases of the moon and that kind of stuff.
Have you heard of like moon gazing for your cycle?
I don't think so.
I I haven't tried it because where I was living I couldn't see the moon. But I read something about, I think it might be like a folktale kind of thing, but it'd be fun to play around with. But like the idea is like if you gaze at the moon every day, every night for 15 minutes, your period will sync up with the moon. Because the bleeding week is supposed to be like the new moon week.
Yeah.
And I know that if you bleed like on the full moon, you have like a red, what is it? Like red flow, red period, red moon? I don't remember.
Oh, I don't know. I definitely cycle more with the full moon though.
Really?
Yeah. I never
Mine
really.
has shifted. For a while I was like with the new moon. It's shifted a little bit. It probably will just always shift.
That's so interesting. I guess that makes sense when you're thinking about the new moon, and that's going to be then like growing. So at that point, when you're actually bleeding, you're like shedding your actual
And
uterine
it's a rest
lining.
time too.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that definitely makes sense. I kind of think of it like I've always thought of it as like I'm bleeding around the full moon, so that eventually like leads to the waning moon, and I'm usually like around that
Hmm.
period. So that's always like my like low energy time.
Interesting. Yeah, I
That's
imagine
all.
there's like a purpose for both too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so was the week before though, honestly. I have like I have really bad PMDD where I get like
Oh
a lot
no.
of emotional dysfunction, and like I also get like really sick sometimes, and so trying to like align that with the moon has been really helpful with my mental health.
Yeah.
Trying to like explain that.
Yeah. And just like quiet it and calm it a little bit as best as one can.
Yeah. And I just think like we mentioned, 70 to 80% of our bodies are water, and the moon just rules over that.
So that includes our periods.
Yeah. What about sperm? Who rules sperm? If the sun is masculine, but the moon rules fluids.
Yeah. I think I don't know. So this is just me like thinking off the cuff. I think I mean the moon rules fluids. The moon also rules fertility. I know in some practices Jupiter rules fertility, but for now we'll just talk about the moon. The moon rules fertility, but Mars also rules like the genitals. It could be a mixture of both. I don't think it's the sun. I think it would be Mars or the moon or both.
Okay.
A
I'm sure there's an
co-rulership
answer for
of
this somewhere. We
yeah.
don't have it, but if anybody finds it, let us know in the comments.
Yeah. And then the moon also rules over our instincts and our unconscious habits. So what's that thing? What is it? Like your basal? Oh gosh. I swear I thought I knew more going into this episode, but anyway, like that thing where we naturally swing our arms when we're walking. Basal something.
I have no idea.
Oh gosh, I am gonna have to Google this.
Basil something. So you're talking about like how the moon rules your like unconscious habit of walking?
Stuff like that. Like the things that we do. I think it might even include like maybe it includes blinking.
Interesting. So I've never heard that. I feel like when I think of the moon ruling over instincts, it could very much be like looking towards your astrological sign and seeing like what are those habits that you may do. So like having my moon in Gemini may be like one of my habits is that I need to like talk everything out loud. Like anything internally going on with me does not feel complete or like, Jordan and I before this episode we're talking a lot about shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a really key component for me of shadow work, which is a lot of like dark, it can be kind of dark and hard and sticky. But one of the habits I've gotten into is like I need to talk about my shadow work. So sometimes that's literally me talking to my animals. Like I'll just literally sit there and like tell my animals about my shadow work, or a therapist or a witchy mentor. And I think that's just like one of those habits that I got into that stems from that like moon Gemini experience.
Yeah. In ninth house too. Ninth house rules mentors.
Yeah, totally. And so I need that guidance.
My moon I have in seventh house, and I've definitely like I definitely feel like grounding and like safety with like my partner. And my mom has this joke that like I mate for life because I've had like very few partners and they've all been like much longer term. But like yeah, I think like that's what I need to feel safe is to have like that one person who's like
Yeah.
the rock. And it's in Taurus too, so it's an earth sign. So yeah, like my literal rock.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that totally makes sense. So archetypes, Jordan.
Yeah, so I love talking about archetypes. The archetypes associated with the moon, like the major ones that I know of are the mother, the caregiver, the public. So like the whole, like if we're looking at the chart of the US public would be represented by the moon. There's also the protector and the mirror. Ember, do you know of any more?
I do associate like the inner child archetype that really resonates for me. So that like precious, vulnerable part of you, before you could really even speak. And
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just like have this like inner child, right? And you need to be nurtured and loved and really taken care of. And it might be that part of you that somebody doesn't really know unless they're like super close to you. Like my inner child, I keep very close. Like I would say my partner is probably the only person that like really, really sees that part of me.
Yeah. I love that. And a good example of someone who is very much like the moon, I feel like, is Molly Weasley from Harry Potter.
I love
Yeah,
that.
she's very emotionally aware of the needs of her children. It makes me think of that clock with the spoons that like always showed her where her kids were.
Yeah.
And she attends to them each like as individuals. And she's also the protector of her children, but not always like the sweet nice way, like the oh don't touch my children, like she's very spicy when she needs to be. And there's that, I'm sorry mom when you hear this, but there's that whole line of like don't touch my daughter you bitch kind of thing. And that's just like her role as a protector.
No, I think that's so true. It can also, I feel like, lend into that like over mothering vibe too. Um,
Mm.
so that's totally legit.
Ooh. I didn't think about that. I'm gonna like I wonder what moon signs would like indicate overmothering. That's so interesting.
I don't know. Again, I just
Yeah.
know like my Cancer, like when that's
My
out of
first thoughts
like,
are like Sagittarius or Jupiter or
yeah,
Pisces.
yeah, no, for sure. Like my Sun Cancer because that's so outwardly expressive. Like over
Hmm.
mothering everybody is a problem I have.
Ooh, that's
Yeah,
such a good yeah. Sun.
yeah.
Good
Again,
talk.
because moon. Wait, what's that word? The moon is
Dispositor.
the
Yeah.
positor of Cancer.
Dispositor.
Dispositor.
Yep. Yep.
Domicile.
Iconic. I feel like I can recite like old podcasts by heart.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to our other podcasts, I have a lot of trouble. I like read a word, and once it's in my brain, it's like that's how that word is pronounced forever.
Oh yeah.
Um,
No
so
one can tell me otherwise when like I've pronounced a word that I've read a million times in my head, and if I'm wrong, I'm like it's gonna live like this
same
forever.
with names and books and stuff like that. What was
Yeah.
the other word I kept saying? It was it was like
Oh, Cassini.
the luminary. It was like
Oh.
luminaries versus something else. I don't know. Never mind. Moving on.
Next. So we talked about with the sun in the last episode, like these big outward expressions, and like the epic journey of the hero, which I could talk about all day. I love that. And the sun needs to be seen and expressed in like a very large way, but the moon is so much more of an internal story. And I really love what you were saying earlier, Ember, about like when you're first born and like the inner child and like the seeking safety and like everything's more instinctual. You're not really like your cognitive thinking is obviously not all developed yet, so you're working on instinct.
Mhm.
And it's where we start internally in someone else's body. Like that's literally where we all start. And for almost all of us, we're all born from the inside of our mother's womb, which again is ruled by the moon. And we were protected and safe. And after we were born, we then become more vulnerable and we crave comfort and connection and touch and safety. And this is all instinctual. You know, we don't have to be taught to crave these things. This is just what we crave. And we have these like immediately right after birth.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I mean, it brings it back for me to that like inner child archetype and just how that kind of shifts over time. I don't know. I do really, we talked about this a little bit in the last episode. I know you and I kind of went back and forth about it, but like the moon to me is like when I meet a child who hasn't had the like initial, I don't know, environmental, emotional, like effects put onto them yet. Like they're either sheltered within their family, their parents. It's like you really kind of see like more of a reflection of the moon and who they are. I'd be really curious. Like I have a lot of friends having kids now, and we actually pull up their chart sometimes and like take a look at it. And it's so interesting. They're like young. They're like 1.5 and one's like turning 3. And I look at their moon and their sun and and their rising sign, and when we're doing like pretty superficial readings, maybe of the big 3, it's interesting that I haven't done this a lot. I've done it with 3 children, and they all kind of more, when I think about them, I think about the way they express themselves as more in line with their moon, which is just a anecdotal experience I've had.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's also a lawnmower going by me, so if you hear it, I do apologize. And then yeah, so that safety related to the moon, and like you said, like what we crave when we're younger. And as we're getting older, and we're figuring out who we are and what our personality is like and what's really going on inside of us. We then get to decide which parts of us to express outwardly. Like we said with the sun, like the sun has to be expressed outwardly. You crave it, you need it, you have to do it. The moon, you get to decide. And you get to decide which part of you feels safe to express and who you feel safe expressing it to. So we are seeking to belong, and we are also being emotionally conditioned during this stage. And this is where like our emotional intelligence is really starting to be built, and it's really starting to get shaped here.
Yeah. That safety key is so interesting and important, and maybe is a little bit explanatory of why, like, I imagine when we're younger, we're better at expressing the moon because we don't understand the risks and fears associated with like the
Mhm.
traumas of expressing those intimate parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a interesting
A little tangent there,
psychological
write that down. Yeah.
tunnel to go down.
And then at some point in the moon's journey, or like several times in our lives, we hit like emotional breaking points or some kind of emotional awakening. And this can be some kind of emotional crisis or dealing with major grief or burnout or just being disconnected for so long. I think COVID could have done that to a lot of people, just like being so disconnected for an extended amount of time.
Oof, yeah. Yeah, this is such an interesting expression where you can feel unsafe for so long, and it definitely leads to kind of like a make or break situation.
Right. And this breaking point is also when we can start to really reclaim our emotional sovereignty.
Oof, we're going down that psychological tunnel. I love it.
It's a
I feel
Scorpio
like
in
I'm
me.
screaming into my mic. I'm sorry if I
No,
am.
you're good. No, it sounds cool to me.
Okay.
And then yeah, I've definitely like struggled a little bit with the sovereignty kind of thing, and it's like realizing the control that you do have over your emotions. And I do want to say that this looks different for everyone. Like I don't think it can be just an overall blanket statement of like you can choose to be happy. I think there's a lot more nuance involved than that, but there are things that you may be able to decide to put first, and it's really hard to do that. But you may be able to decide to put your own well-being first. You may decide to put yourself over your work. Or maybe you struggle with this feeling of like, I can't rest until blank is done. You can choose to rest. You can choose to take care of yourself. And that's really hard, but that's my little 2 cents.
Yeah, oh gosh, I vibe with this so hard. I think that choosing rest is such a difficult a difficult task. To be able to choose rest without feeling guilty is something that I think many of us can relate to.
True.
And I also think that using your moon to kind of know where and how that could feel good is a possibility. Like, where does the moon fall? Again, like on a superficial level, right? Because we always talk about how other planets, what house it's in, like all that stuff also matters. But I mean, even if you look at just where the moon falls as far as like the elemental sign it falls into, like if, for example, let's say like water, let's say your moon is in a water sign, just thinking about, maybe rest looks like for you taking like a really warm, cozy bath or soaking in a hot tub. Like, what makes you feel good and safe? That's like a really easy, simple way to start. Your moon could be in an earth sign. And let's say that what feels good for you is just being out in nature and being out in nature with yourself and the trees and the animals and really just soaking in some of that earthy energy. If you're a fire sign, maybe action and something passionate for you would feel really good. Potentially going for a run, or what else could be like fiery, Jordan? I have like such little fire in my chart that I like never know. I don't
I have
know.
such little water, but I had another example too. I just thought of it, but I have my moon. It's an earth sign in seventh house. And I talked about earlier, like, like my partner is like my rock and all that. He has his moon in 11th house. And so he really likes to do like everything with his friends. And this isn't an insecurity of mine. I'm totally fine with this. But like something that comes up for us a lot is like I always want to do things with him and he's always like, "Let's invite everybody to come do this with us." And that's just like, that's what he needs. That's what he craves is like to do things in big groups of people and to do things with his friends. And I'm satisfied with just doing things with him. But that's just kind of a cool little thing that shows up in our chart. And it's an air sign, so it's another indicator of being very social.
Yeah, social, talking it out, like, that could feel really good for you. I mentioned I have my moon in Gemini, so, like, processing things out loud, especially things that relate to, like, my inner self and, like, that shadow work and that hard part of myself is so crucial to me. I mean, fire, creativity, so, like, painting, things like that.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, yeah. Yeah, like, just using that, like, creative spark are all ways that you can take
Starting
something so
something new
simple.
too.
Yeah, starting something new,
Like
just
yeah,
getting,
like
like,
that
really
I
in
like what you said, like creative spark. Like yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I think
actually starting something, yeah.
yeah, I think I really like when you can take something so simple in astrology, if especially in the beginning when you're, like, still really trying to learn and memorize things, you can take it and, like, associate it with something and have a jumping off point of, like, where you can go to explore that a little bit more. So I hope we were able to help with that a little bit.
Yeah, and then kind of like coming after that, I feel like once you've like identified what you need, this is kind of where you learn to like become your own protector.
Oof, love that too. There's like something kind of scary, but very powerful. Your own protector.
Yeah, and here's the part that I really love because that third stage of like the emotional breaking point and then deciding like, okay, I'm going to be my own protector, whatever, that sounds like really final and kind of like unrealistic, but what's next is getting to actually figure it all out. It's not like an immediate fix. Now you get to trial and error, but you try to do it more like with a softness. You get to try to do different things and like learning them from a place of nurturing yourself. So it's kind of like coming at it with like a different kind of awareness.
I really like that. I didn't really, as we were like talking about this episode, expect it to kind of go down such like a psychological analysis route. And then this is really speaking to me, actually, like the way that
Oh,
I've
good.
always yeah. So like what's next then? So after you've kind of learned to come from a place of like nurturing yourself, maybe with some of the ways that we've talked about or ways that you've been able to explore on your own. Like what's next? What's the next stage?
The next and last stage, this is where you have like gained emotional wisdom. So the moon here no longer fears emotions or fears being sensitive. She's not overwhelmed with feelings anymore. This is also the stage where the moon has learned her intuition. And now the moon just gets to be a safe haven and a sanctuary for other people, and help them learn their emotions and their intuition. So I also kind of, I didn't think about this before, but we could also connect this to the maiden mother crone energy. And this is kind of
Mm,
where we move into the crone, where the crone now passes us down on towards future generations.
that's Oh my gosh. Okay. I definitely really like that. That actually, Avatar: The Last Airbender? Do you watch that?
I do.
Okay. So the Princess of the Water Tribe, that like whole culmination.
Yes.
I don't remember what season it is or anything. But in that whole season, she's basically like blessed by the moon goddess, right? After being born. And she was born very weak. And this moon represents like the nurturing power of the tribe and of her and a sacred like cyclical bond that exists. So like, and then as she grows, this princess grows, she becomes such an intense, strong leader and incredibly emotionally intelligent and just basically like embodies the moon, which is such a perfect
Hmm.
archetype for the moon. But then I just like love that then the show goes the next step forwards and she goes through this like incredibly emotionally tragic loss of like her tribe and her home and then literally ends up transforming into the moon. Like that is just such a perfect
Yeah.
representation of what we've been talking about. And
Yeah,
I
no,
just
literally.
yeah, I love that season and I just think it really flows with the cycle of life and rebirth and her just actually growing into her power and trusting her intuition to like reach the literal state of becoming the moon. Like that's insane.
Yeah, that's such a good example. And then like going through these stages, I think it's kind of like it can be such a common trope in fiction, but the one that I had thought of was Elsa from Frozen. Have you seen Frozen?
Let it go. Let it go.
Let it
Yeah.
go. Absolutely. Wonderful. 100%. So at the beginning, we don't actually see her being born, but you can assume she was, like most babies, probably born from her mother's womb and relied solely on her instincts and desires for safety and comfort and all that jazz.
Most babies born from the mother's womb.
We are an all-inclusive podcast here at the Astro Study Room. So then we get to see her discover the power she has, and this power is really cool, but it's also really dangerous. And so in the second stage, and for anyone who's watching this who hasn't seen Frozen, she has like these ice powers, but she accidentally keeps like hurting people with them. I haven't seen it too much, so I don't know how well you know it, Ember, but feel free to correct me if I misrepresent the movie.
Okay.
But in this in the second stage, she's learning what is safe and what is unsafe to express, and what she may need to keep inside. And here, she is really acting on fear, and that fear is molding who she is internally. And her
Mhm.
decision and experiences were leading her to repress her emotions. And there's literally that line from the song, "Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know," because she was like concealing her emotions.
Oh yeah, she was like concealing and then like physically conceals herself inside like a giant castle. Um yeah, and then but like then she hits like we talked about like her breaking point.
Hmm.
Assuming you've seen the movie, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it was she gets to a high pressure situation, which was her coronation day. It was the day that she was going to become queen, and to be queen she would have to be seen more often, which she did not want to do. So she felt very triggered, and it caused her to like spiral out of control, and she was just done. She was over it. She had reached her breaking point, and she decided that it's just best for herself if she just isolates from everyone. And I feel like this is her realizing and accepting her emotional needs, but she just doesn't know how to fulfill them yet in like a healthy way. So then she gets to the fourth stage where she is trial and erroring different ways to feel safe now that she's aware of what she needs. And part of Elsa's whole story is having this deep-seated desire for control, but because of that control and fear, she has lacked connection with her loved ones, like her sister Anna. And if it wasn't a movie, she probably would have spent more time like in this trial and error stage. But because it's a movie, she only had to trial once or twice, and
It's not
yeah.
fair. I wish life were a movie. I want to only try my drama once.
And then I'm set for life. And so what happens next is she witnesses Anna sacrifice herself. She realizes that love is more powerful and sacred than fear and all that. And I don't know what happens in the next Frozen movies, but for the sake of this example, I'm going to say that Elsa reaches some kind of like self-actualization with her emotional intelligence and intuition, and then goes on to be a protector for others and all that jazz.
Yeah, I love that for Elsa. And I love that metaphor really vibes with like how we kind of go from the different stages of the moon within our own lives. I really like that.
Yeah, right. Because in our own lives, like we are going to go back and forth more often. Like we're going to, you might trial and error for a little bit, and then you might realize that there was something else that you needed, and you have to go explore what else you needed for safety. It doesn't, it's not going to be just like the one thing. But
Yeah,
yeah, in
which
our real lives,
cue
we're going
the
to move back and
sequel.
forth. Yeah.
Cue the sequel. I won't spoil, but yeah, we're definitely going to go through this back and forth. And we can literally reflect on those cycles, much like the moon, because we're talking about cycles here, and we're really always going back to that theme, going through these like waning and waxing periods in life, literally reflecting the moon. And I think that's an awesome way to journal and reflect on your connection with the moon as well.
Yeah. So I know that was like a bit long-winded, but I hope you all found some value in that. Ember, can you tell us a bit about the moon's physical correlations here on Earth?
Oh my gosh, yes, I can. So I work a lot with the moon, so I'm gonna try to keep this like some more common and practical ways to connect physically with the moon. And so when we're talking crystal allies, you want to find stones that are gonna really like reflect your inner intuition. Maybe some clarity or some cleansing stones. And so I love working with moonstone. I have a really beautiful raw moonstone ring that my partner got me that I actually wear every time I'm menstruating to kind of like represent. That's like my representation part of the cycle. And I don't even know if anybody notices that besides me, but that's my connection with the
I
moon.
love that. I love that
Oh,
it's
thank
like
you.
I love that it's like it's a little bit private because no one else knows it but you kind of thing. Like it's not like anyone on the street is gonna be like, oh, she's on her period. But like it's a nod from you to the moon. I really like that.
Yeah. And Moonstone is really going to be all about like that divine feminine intuition, emotional balance, and very representative of cycles. But let's say you don't have Moonstone or you want to look at something else, you could look at some cleansing stones. I love using selenite or clear quartz, which may not actually be representative like the moon itself, but I think does a really good job of amplifying the moon vibes. So you may want to like set something on a windowsill under the moon and like put some selenite there for cleansing. And then finally, stones that represent intuition and magic can absolutely be associated with the moon. So my favorite of these is labradorite. That when I have like a really pretty piece of labradorite, it actually looks like moon on water. Like when you let it reflect, that is
Yeah,
just what I've always thought about. And so I'll
I love
use
that.
labradorite in some of like my moon rituals and whatnot.
What else do you use in your moon rituals?
Ooh, so like I mentioned, the moonstone. Definitely have to give an honorary mention to white aragonite. So white aragonite is this beautiful stone. If you've ever seen aragonite, it kind of like builds on itself and has these really almost looks like coral outside of the water. It's so beautiful. But
Huh.
it's a yeah. Have you seen aragonite, Jordan?
No, I'm gonna Google it right now.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I actually use that stone for connecting with my intuition, and I use it a lot for decision making. It's really great for calming your nervous system during a full moon ritual. And, like I already mentioned, I'll use selenite or something like that to cleanse items under the full moon.
That's really cool. I love that. It is really pretty. I just Googled a photo of it and now I'm trying not to be influenced to purchase things, but it is really pretty. It looks, yeah, it
Yeah,
looks
there's
like a good
different
thing to
colors
have in
of
your collection.
aragonite too. I have like an orangey one
Yeah.
too that represents to me it's more my like sun and my moon aragonite. And then for our plant or herbal connections, I actually started this list based off of like intuitive guidance and what I've learned from my mentors. So I went with plants that have a bit more of like a cooling energy. So plants that may help you connect with like your dreams or your intuition. Mugwort is going to be very potent for that, potent for dream work, intuitive connection. Lavender is another great herb or plant because it's relatively cooling and calming and relaxing. So that's what I started with for this list. But then when I went to my Culpeper book, I realized both of those are actually associated with Venus. And there's different associations, right? Like this is just one resource, but I do really like the Culpeper book, The Complete Herbal Guide. So I decided to look up, I like went through the book and looked up like all the different plants that are associated with the moon. So I picked out a couple like willow, watercress, poppy. So like poppy has a really intense, as you may or may not know from like the Wizard of Oz, poppy has a pretty intense effect on what is it, your consciousness. Like it could literally make you fall asleep if
Yeah.
poppy is associated with like opium and stuff like that.
I think of Game of Thrones and they always talk about like the milk of the
Oh
poppy.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Iris and clary sage also came up here as well.
That's cool. This one I'm really excited for. What about like the tarot associations?
Okay. So when we're talking about the tarot, and I'm throwing this out here because I actually didn't know this. And so I remember I'm like newer to tarot and I never thought of it this way. But the moon card in tarot, if you're familiar with tarot, is not actually associated with the moon.
This blew my mind. I don't know what you're talking about. Like I remember when like, when we were going over this script together like a couple weeks ago, I was like, no freaking way.
Yeah, so like the moon card. Wait. So Jordan and I even talked about adding like some sort of sound in here for like new like knowledge that we
A
didn't.
jingle, yeah.
So I don't know, Jordan, if you find one, that would be pretty funny. But no, the moon card in the tarot deck is actually representative of the dreamy, intuitive Pisces. And so people say that the moon card is actually really ruled by Neptune, which makes sense when you think about the moon card in tarot. It's just this very dreamy representation of the unconsciousness, visions. It can also like depict hidden enemies, much like Neptune is representing these confusing things aren't as they seem vibe. And so, like, mind blown. Okay. We are going to put a card to the moon. We are going to throw down the high priestess, which does absolutely make sense. It is such a serious embodiment of that divine femme energy, and is just the high priestess is so receptive to the most subtle of energies. And so she's going to represent cycles, sacred knowledge, the unconscious inner voice, very much like the moon does. So essentially, the high priestess is just a literal moon personified.
I didn't think about this earlier, but as I'm like staring at they're called rainbow moonstones. I'm not exactly sure why, because they're mostly black and white. I think like at certain lights. Oh yeah, you can see like a little bit of like a rainbow sheen
Usually
on
you'll
them,
see like a
but
little
they're mostly
reflection.
black and white. And but as you were mentioning, like the high priestess, because the high priestess, at least in the traditional tarot, has like the black and white pillars, which I think has like a connection between like the divine feminine and the masculine, and the dark and the light. But I don't know, it makes me think of this rainbow moonstone now.
Oh, that is very pretty stone. I have a sphere version of rainbow moonstone that I really like that I keep on my windowsill.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I now remember as we're going into our next section, Jordan, it was dignities versus dignitaries. I kept calling them dignitaries.
Oh, dignitaries.
I'm like, now we're going to talk about our dignitaries.
So confidently.
Yeah, all right.
Now we shall go into our dignitarians.
Yep, we're going to talk about our moon's dignities here, or dignitaries, depending on who you're asking.
Yeah, so to kind of go through them a little bit quicker, and then we'll break them down. The domicile, where the moon is at home, where the moon likes to be and is comfortable, is Cancer. The detriment, where the moon is a bit less comfortable, this is Capricorn. The exaltation, which is the moon's favorite place to be, this is Taurus. And the fall, which is essentially the moon's least favorite place to be, is Scorpio.
So this is where we talked about last time. So this is like the signs are actually opposite each other, right? That's how you can like figure out. Okay, that's like such a good way. I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, so Taurus is across from Scorpio and Cancer is across from Capricorn.
Yes, okay.
Which again, might be another little connection between, I don't know. We talked about like the connection between, or I think we're going to talk about this later actually, the moon and Saturn. And interesting that the moon's detriment is Saturn's sign. But Saturn's detriment is not the moon's sign, so I don't know how much that'll relate. But anyway, the moon is quite literally at home in Cancer, and Cancer is all about our homes and safe havens. And like we've talked about before, the moon is what we need to feel safe, and it's about creating a safe haven, much like Cancer. So the moon in Cancer is protected and feels very safe. The moon has the ability and the space to feel her feelings and to create a safe home and a safe environment. And with that safety, we are then able to focus on nurturing ourselves and others, kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once you have that safety, you can move on to belonging or whatever's next. With the moon in Cancer, our emotions are just safe to be. And then the moon in its detriment in Capricorn, Capricorn is very cold and distant. And I once heard someone say, the moon wants to cry, but Capricorn says, schedule it for later.
I love that so much, especially because I have some really close Capricorn friends that is an accurate representation.
Yeah. And so I imagine the moon in Capricorn just isn't as easily able to create that homey, family type environment that the moon yearns for. This isn't the worst placement. The moon can still create safety and stability, but it's more from a place of rigidness and like strict structure, rather than like the softness and compassion that you can feel from the moon. The moon is exalted in Taurus. Here the moon is able to feel her feelings with a steadiness and a groundedness and not as much of an overwhelm, and has the time and the patience to understand her feelings. And people with this placement likely have a high level of emotional intelligence that they develop over time, and they will also likely have a great memory And this place is also great for embodiment and for feeling things, for feeling your intuition. And this placement also allows us to physically feel emotions. I just said that. Physically feel emotions and intuition in our bodies. And they may have an easier time grounding in the earth and also enjoy the pleasures from the earth, like food and eating can often feel like sacred time for Taurus moons. And now with the moon in her fall in Scorpio, here the emotions are very, very deep. Scorpio is known for not doing anything just on the surface level. Scorpio goes deep into everything and very fast too. Like Scorpio is not interested in the small talk. Scorpio is going to come up to you and be like, "Hello, my name is blah blah blah. What is your trauma?" kind of thing. So here, Scorpio forces us to dive deep into our emotions whether we are ready for it or not. And this is just an easy placement and a recipe for overwhelming emotions that our minds are just not really as easily equipped to handle all the time.
Okay. So domicile in Cancer, detriment Capricorn, exalted in Taurus, fall in Scorpio. And you mentioned, Jordan, your moon is in Taurus. Okay.
It
Does this
is.
resonate with you then? Do you find that like what you said and
Some of it.
Okay.
This is, we can actually go back into a little bit into the conversation about like dispositors, like the host of your planet. And like I said, Venus hosts my moon, and I have a very poorly placed Venus. So I'm wondering if that's like why maybe sometimes I don't. There are some things with the Taurus moon that I definitely align with, but some of it I don't. Like we were talking about before this podcast, like I just don't feel things the way I want to. And Taurus moons are like known for like feeling things like physically and sensationally, and I don't. But there are other things, like I do think I have a pretty great memory. I mean, honestly, I think that's one of my strengths with astrology is that I can just like memorize these facts.
That's so interesting.
I do enjoy a good eating session.
No, that's so interesting, Jordan.
And I like to think I have good.
I'm sorry, everyone. So Jordan and I are actually trying recording this on a new platform, Riverside. Previously, we were doing this on Zoom, and we're finding there's a little bit of a lag. So if we're just like awkwardly quiet for a second, maybe Jordan can edit some of that out. But please bear with us.
Yeah, we're gonna try.
But yeah, Jordan, going back to that. Okay, so you like good eating. I love good eating too. But yeah, I think that's interesting, Jordan. Not to bring it back to sort of like our pre-podcast recording, but I do find it interesting. We've talked a lot about the journey of the moon and where we feel safe to express these things. And we talked about maybe not being able to feel some of those like sensations or intuition and energies can come from a place of like blockages or shadow work. So I wonder if you're just on your moon journey.
Yeah, I think about it too, because especially when I had brought up Elsa and like one of her big things is like the deep-seated need for control, but how that's like hindered her from connecting with others. And I definitely have like a bit. I mean, we talked about this when we started this podcast of just like I have like such a like I need to control. So yeah, a little bit of that shadow side there.
Interesting. No, I think that's really interesting to explore, and that's what a lot of these placements and why we're going into these luminaries and planets so much is because they really are so important for your chart and to helping you really uncover and understand some of these aspects of who you are. And the moon is super interesting because when we talk about the moon, it moves so quickly. Can you tell us a little bit about the moon transits, Jordan?
I will. I do want to say too that like another reason why we're doing this and why we talk so much about this, because these placements are so much deeper than just like a surface level of like Googling Taurus moon and like Googling like, oh, Taurus moons are patient or whatever. Like this is so much deeper than that, and that's why, not that you have to get into astrology, but if you do, like that, you're going to get a lot more from astrology when you get into it and when you really like study how it works in your own chart. Because like I said, like Googling Taurus moon is not really going to describe me, but because I've reflected a lot on Taurus and on the moon and on these placements and on how it relates to my 7th house and the dispositor of my moon and the aspects to my moon, like it's conjunct my Mercury and all that, there's so much more depth that you're not going to be able to Google. And that's why this is a big spiritual practice, getting into astrology.
I love that.
Yeah. So the moon does move very quickly. It spends about 2.5 days in each sign or each house. And it takes about 28 to 29.5 days to go around your whole chart.
Yeah, I remember in the last episode, you mentioned the correlation to Saturn. And I think that was because Saturn spends 2.5 years in each sign and 28 to 29 and a half years, like really to go through the zodiac, right? Like it's very similar to the moon in that reflection.
Right. And I haven't learned too much yet about like the symbolism between this connection. Like I don't know why they're connected or what it means, but I just know that they are connected in that way, and it's really interesting to note that.
Well, we're talking so much about cycles, and I think it's really cool that the moon follows like our reproductive feminine cycles too. Like that's so, I mean, again, like usually when you're menstruating, that whole cycle lasts about 28 to 29 and a half days. So that's like so freaking witchy and cool. I had to mention that too since we're on this.
Yeah, and so because the moon is moving so quickly, our emotional needs and our gut instincts may shift day to day. And this can also play a lot into like what your moon sign is personally too, of course, and what planets the moon is aspecting in your chart as well. And they also say like Cancer risings, because they are ruled by the moon, like you're going to see their emotions shift.
Oh,
fast.
that totally makes sense.
But in general, day to day, the moon can have an impact on your mood for the day, or what your emotional focus is that day, or how you react to things instinctually that day, or just what you need to feel safe and comforted that day.
Yeah, and I know for sure the phase of the moon, like I talked about earlier, does really impact me and how I'm feeling. And that cycles book that I mentioned earlier, by Cyclical Roots, so you can find them on Instagram or look them up, is really awesome for tracking that. And it also actually has a habit tracker that can track how you're feeling, what you're doing during certain cycles, as well as the signs of the moon, which is such an awesome way to connect with yourself.
Ooh, I love a good planner.
With someone, especially as someone with feminine reproductive parts, the moon, I think, can really significantly impact you. And that's just what makes it so cool to work with magic in the moon. And again, like there's so many different things you can do to harness or honor lunar energy. I think this is the part, Jordan, I could talk about a few of my own practices, but you can always look to the phase of the moon to set intentions for your work. And I actually don't do this all the time, mostly because when I like have a spell or something I want to work on, I just kind of want to get shit done, and time is very limited. So I do kind of just go when the time works for me. But if I can incorporate the moon cycle or the sign that the moon is in to complement it, like, hey, that's great. And I will definitely try.
Yeah, I definitely, when I can get myself to do it, I really enjoy doing like new moon or full moon rituals. I think the thing that hinders me the most these days has been like if it's like on a school night kind of thing, like if I have to go to bed. Because as much as I try to do like fast, like quick and dirty rituals, I love a good setup. I love spending like 3 hours doing it, and I don't know if I can do that every 2 weeks, but I want to. Like I do enjoy setting the intentions at the new moon and then like seeing what comes to fruition by the full moon.
I think that is so potent because I'm the same way in the sense that like I would love to spend hours and hours on my practice and my rituals, but that is just so not feasible for me. So I do try, and I will talk about it a little bit when we get into like the new moon and full moon, but I do try to make them like easy enough that I can do it if I am feeling really exhausted, stressed, whatever. I can still do it, or I can build upon it if I'm like, no, I actually have 3 hours to dedicate to this full moon ritual. Like, let's go. So a little overview here of like how I generally work with the moon, and that's in phases. And this is totally dependent on the witch, what you're doing, and what's intuitive to you. So this is just one example of how this witch right here works with the moon. But when I'm in the waxing moon phase, I would want to tend to gear those spells or whatever I'm doing, that work, that manifestation, to things that potentially relate to growth, attraction, building energy, increasing abundance, bringing in love. As the moon is growing, so are your intentions. And then the opposite would be true for the waning moon. So maybe I would use the waning moon to work on spells of letting go, maybe some banishing or protection spells. Maybe you just need to detox and cleanse, clear out emotional clutter, things like that. So my new moon and full moon rituals, I keep very simple. Like I mentioned, time is not something I have a lot of these days. And so for the new moon, I don't do a ton for the new moon, honestly. I love to recognize it. I like recognize that I'm just like, I am in this like resting time period. I tend to journal on goals I may have for the upcoming cycle, which is really actually helpful with this like cyclical journals. When it's the new moon, it'll have prompts for me that I can write in there. So that's part of my ritual. And I do like to pull cards, so maybe some oracle cards, and honestly just verbally set intentions for myself, or maybe I'll write it down in my journal book. Do you do anything for the new moon, Jordan?
I always try to be aware of it. I try to like I like to look at the astrology a bit beforehand and see what's going on, especially with the new moon. The new moon is like my jam. Like I feel like I'm a lot more intentional around the new moon. Like I said, I like to look at the astrology and try to like get a vibe of like, what is this new moon asking for me, or what is it providing for me, or what is it challenging me with? And then, ideally at some point I'll get into the habit of actually tracking it all the way to the full moon. But I spend a lot more time with the new
That's
moon
so
than I do the
funny.
full
I'm
moon.
more of a full moon gal. Yeah.
Most people
But
are,
I think
yeah.
I mean, that just goes into our whole dynamic of just being compliments of each other. But anyway, um,
Yeah.
so for
Yeah.
my full moon ritual, like I mentioned, I just like to keep them quick and dirty and something that I can do before bed. So every full moon, I actually take time to meditate with my white aragonite that I mentioned earlier. And then I have a little gratitude jar. And this is a jar that I started at the Taurus full moon last year. So that's around November. Yeah, and it's around
Yes.
Thanksgiving time. And Taurus in general, it's very much about gratitude and bringing in these like beautiful people and beautiful ideas. And so I make a little note with the sign that the full moon is in. So I'll start with like the sign on the card on the note, and then I'll write what I'm grateful for, and then I add it to the jar. And then my plan, because this is the first year I'm doing this,
Oh.
is that at the Taurus full moon, when it cycles through, I'm going to bring those notes out. I'm going to read them. And then I haven't decided if I'm going to like bury them, burn them. I don't know. Like I want to do something with them after the year's over. So that's like my quick and dirty. But if I have more time, I will 100% like dance under the full moon, drum. We have a hot tub, so I'll like go soak under the hot tub, in the hot tub, soak in the hot tub, and just like
Just buried under the hot tub.
I'm gonna soak under the hot tub under the full moon. Um, and
It just finds you and your head just poking out from under the hot tub, staring up at the full moon with a big smile on
I'm
your
hungry,
face,
okay?
being completely crushed.
My brain power is decreasing. But the just like bathing in the full moon under that divine, beautiful energy. Also, the moon just like loves being acknowledged. So I want to say that like Jordan saying that like, she just acknowledges the moon. The moon loves that. The moon wants to be acknowledged with some like drumming, beautiful movement, and that's just enough. Right there is enough to honor her.
Yeah, I liked what you said too about like sometimes I think you said like around the new moon specifically, sometimes you'll just say out loud an intention. I do like that that's like it's a moment of not stillness, but it's a moment of like that connection of intentional connection, and it's quick and it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take any materials. It's literally just you and your voice and your own intentions
Yeah,
and
I'm
goals.
100% about simplifying things. And so let's say you just like have some crystals that you work with occasionally, or you have a necklace you wear every day and you just know that needs to be cleansed. Like you have that feeling, right? Just like cleanse it during waning moon. Like maybe you just want to, I mean, I also like to cleanse under the full moon, but like you can absolutely, put it under a waning moon for a few days and just imagine that energy dissipating or attracting energy by manifesting during the waxing moon. Like, I never would consider these requirements to follow, but I think it's really great to be able to complement your magic with the energy of the moon. And then if you're looking for actionable magic things, like the sun tea, which is really funny because I did look it up earlier after Jordan was like, well, isn't sun tea also like you have to be careful with that? I looked it up. I totally drink sun tea. I've been fine, but you do want to be careful about the temperatures just because there's a certain temperature that bacteria can grow in. So like make sure you're doing your research and like making sure what you're putting in that tea doesn't potentially
Mm-hmm.
like cause you to get sick. But I haven't found the same information for lunar tea, and I wonder if that's, again, like a temperature thing. But I love making lunar tea or moon water. I actually do more moon water, and that involves just leaving water out under the moon, either with or without herbs, in whatever cycle makes sense to you, and then using that water for any sort of ritual magic. So maybe you want to have water that's great for banishing negative energy. You can leave a jar of water charging next to a clear quartz crystal on the windowsill under a waning moon. Or you can charge some water under the full moon and bathe in it after, like use it on your skin and like spread that energy there. You can throw in energy absorbing stones to your magic. So you can use something like onyx or shungite, which are both safe for water. Always check if your crystals are safe for water before putting them in there, because you don't want to ruin your beautiful crystal. And yeah, just sort of like intuitively guide yourself with what working with the moon feels like for you and what feels good for you.
Yeah, I like the idea of like all the different things that you can do with water. I kind of like, I don't know, I got this idea just now of just like having like my little jar of moon water and then just like literally pouring it down in the
Yeah. Oh
shower
my gosh, I've done that.
over my head. I put that like yeah, I like, you couldn't see me in the camera, but I didn't mean just, I mean you can. I didn't mean just pour it down the drain, but
No, I definitely have done that before. And it's really cold. It's very like awakening too. So it feels magical because it's usually like a little bit chilly
Ooh.
and you pour it on yourself. So yeah,
Yeah.
lots of things you can do with the moon, everyone. And we would love to hear about your own practices too. If you have ideas or something sparks like a really
Yes.
fun idea for yourself, please share it with us because we would love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in each episode, as we're coming to a close, Jordan and I want to end on something for you all to reflect on and something for you all to do. So, for some reflections or journal prompts, if you're looking to connect with the moon, you can really focus on the question of what makes you feel safe. What energy does your inner child need to feel nurtured and loved? Or you could think about it in terms of your intuition and how do you feel that you best connect with your own intuition? Are you feeling it in your body? Are you hearing things? Do you just have some sort of knowing? Intuition is such an important practice, whether you consider yourself a witch or not. And leaning and learning how your body attunes to your own intuition is a whole journey and experience. And we can even look to the chart for that to get some more in depth understanding of intuition. And that we'll definitely cover later in future episodes.
Yeah, for sure. Since getting into astrology, one of my major attractions to astrology was hoping to be able to use it to figure out and understand and connect with my own intuition. So I've kind of made it like my business to understand as much as I can intuition in the birth chart. So we can definitely go super in depth to this because I have a lot of thoughts and a lot to talk about. But for something to do, like we mentioned with the sun, I thought it would be cool to write a letter introducing yourself to the moon. So this is the same activity that we recommended with the sun, because again, originally this was going to be one episode. Can you believe it? Introduce yourself to the moon, tell the moon a bit about you, ask some questions about the moon. You can be specific to your chart if you'd like. Is the planet supported or unsupported by essential dignity in your chart? What sign and house is the planet in? How does this planet show up for you in your life? And maybe tell them your thoughts on this journey, kind of like with the sun's hero journey and how you could have asked the sun about the sun's hero journey in your chart. You can ask the moon about their emotional journey in your chart. And what questions do you have for the moon? And this would be a great time to pull either a tarot card or oracle card or whatever kind of divination method that you like to use to ask, what can I learn from the moon right now?
So much for being here in the study room with us. We hope you feel a bit more connected to the sun, the moon, and we're so excited for you to be joining us, whether you're a beginner to astrology or just refreshing on what you already know. We hope you learned something new or had some takeaways.
And if you'd like to go a little bit deeper, we'll be posting a few more journal prompts, rituals, and guides to what we talked about today, as well as building a community of astrology students over on our free Patreon. It is linked in the show
Next
notes.
time, Jordan and I have a little treat for you. So we know that kind of going in a row between like every planet can get a little bit, it can be a lot, and then maybe not the most exciting to listen to every time. So we're going to kind of jump in with an othersode. And so stay tuned for our topic. We're going to be talking to you about all kinds of different things over the course of this podcast. And we are really excited to bring some of our own personal journey into our talks.
Yeah, so these other sods that we're thinking are going to be a bit more like chatty feeling. It's not really going to be about teaching something or reflecting on like our study notes exactly in that class. It will be more so reflecting on like our own lives with astrology and what's happened to us since learning astrology.
Yeah, and as we've said before, this is a learning experience for us too. So we don't know how that vibe's gonna go. We hope you love it. We're gonna love it, and we'll change it up and see what happens.
We're going to do it anyway.
Anyway.
This podcast is my practice of asking big questions, uncovering the hidden truths, and creating an accessible space for others to do
And
the
I'm
same.
so grateful to be learning alongside Jordan and all of you, sharing our resources and diving into what it means to connect with the cosmos. Thank you for being part of this with us, and we'll see you back in the study room every other Tuesday.